everybody, and welcome to Click Here to Exit, an evaluation of quick exit buttons. My name is Kieron, and I'm here to talk to you today about quick exit buttons, which are in use on many support service websites. The motivation behind these are that people will often be visiting these websites but need to be able to hide what they're doing from some adversary in their home environment. For example, in domestic abuse scenarios, people may be visiting domestic abuse support services or contacting the police, and then if their abuser walks in, they need to hide what they're doing on their screen and from their browser history to avoid any negative consequences. The common solution for this on support service websites are quick exit buttons, such as those you see on screen here. The idea behind these is that when they are clicked, they will take the user to a different website, such as Google, the news, or the weather. And if they have one of the better implementations, they'll hide the sensitive website from your browsing history, so that anyone who accesses your computer later is not able to see what websites you've been visiting. We think these are a very useful feature for vulnerable users, and we want to identify how to make them more secure and usable to better protect these users. The first step in our study was to collect a large number of websites which may contain a quick exit button on them, which we did by taking 20 categories of support service which may make use of these features, as well as 6 countries which are primarily English-speaking countries. And from that, we identified 2,045 websites which may contain a quick exit button. Of those, we found 401 with an exit button and 323. So 401 with a desktop exit button and 323 with a mobile exit button, as well as some which contained quick exit shortcuts, such as being able to press the escape key multiple times to exit the website. From this, we then identified which websites are most likely to contain an exit button. And by grouping those by category, we see that the vast majority of gendered violence websites, so those providing support to victims of domestic abuse or rape and sexual assault, will provide a quick exit mechanism. And some crime services, in particular victim support services provided by governments to recent victims of crime, will contain exit buttons more commonly than our baseline of about 20% of websites. These exit buttons are implemented in a variety of different ways. The 2 most common implementations are a simple redirect. So when you click on this button, you are redirected to another website, same as your average link on the internet, which is implemented by about 3/4 of the websites in our dataset. There are also a more advanced implementation where you overwrite the current URL. So you replace the current website with a different one, which removes it from the browser history. And if the user presses the back button at any time, it will not show the sensitive website when you press back. This is a more effective implementation, but it is only seen in about 1/4 of the websites in a dataset. We created a security criterion to evaluate how secure these different implementations are. And what we found is that overwriting the URL is the best implementation, while redirect, although it is more common, has several flaws, such as not hiding the site when you press the back button, or not hiding it from the browser history. So it is secure from someone just shoulder surfing, looking over and seeing what's on your screen, but it's not secure against a user who is able to look at your computer later on and to try and find what sites you have been visiting. Other implementations, such as filling the history with garbage, either by opening multiple tabs or by going to a website which cycles through different other websites so that they fill up your browser history, can work fairly well, although providing lots of garbage in the user's history may actually alert the adversary or abuser, which may be more detrimental than helpful. And although other implementations, such as modifying the current page to look like a different website, or simply opening a new tab while leaving the other in the background, are present in some of the sites in our dataset, they are far from effective, and we would recommend against using them. Now, we also looked at the usability of these exit buttons. So to do this, we first gathered lots of properties of the different exit buttons in our dataset. So for 401 sites, we measured the size of the exit button on the screen, where it is located. So is it at the top? Is it part of the page content? Is it in one of the corners? As well as if it's visible when you first load the website, and if it stays on the screen when you're using the website, so if you're scrolling around or navigating to different pages. We then measured the usability in 2 ways. The first is to get an absolute metric by having different annotators time those, use a tool which times the amount of time it takes them to click on this exit button and escape from the website. And we then provided them with a questionnaire with a series of Likert scales, such as, is it easy to locate the button, and does it stand out on the web page? which then provide both an absolute metric of how usable the site was, as well as a perceived metric of how well you think the exit button, how easy do you think the exit button is to use. We then provided all this data to some logistic regression models so that we could correlate the different properties of the exit buttons with either decreased time to access the exit button or improved Likert scores. What we found was consistent across all four of our logistic regression models. So the ideal design choices are to pin the button in the top right of the screen, or at least on the right-hand side. Ideally, make sure it's visible as soon as you load the website, and it has to stay on the screen when scrolling. If you start scrolling, it disappears off the top. It's not much use to users who will need to access it rapidly at any time. It is better to use a button or a banner rather than an image or an icon or just a simple bit of text, especially if you label it with text such as quick escape or click here to exit, as it makes it immediately obvious to users what this button is for and how to use it. There are several common errors that we identified in the buttons in our data set in the existing implementations. One such limitation is covering the button with something else. So many websites will provide a cookie notice as required by EU law on their website about the use of cookies on the website. However, this quite commonly covered the different exit buttons that were present on websites in about 1 in 20 cases. And unless users are very vigilant about getting rid of these notices as soon as they appear, this can cause issues with accessing the button when you need to use it. Second, we found that lots of the websites had the button disappear off screen when you started using the website. So if you started scrolling down, this is present in almost 1 in 4 websites of our data set, which is concerning. People need to access these buttons at any given time. They do not have to, you do not want them to have to scroll back up to the top of the website to be able to find your button. Third, we have the unlabeled image is the worst type of button that you could be using. So some might use images or icons to save space, such as providing an X or a power button. However, it's not clear to users immediately what these are for, and it is more difficult for users to use these buttons, especially if they're not familiar with the feature. And finally, mobile users are users too. Lots of websites didn't think too hard about how these buttons could be used for mobile users. In fact, 70 of the websites out of the 400, so about 1 in 5, did not have a mobile exit button, although they did have one on desktop. However, more concerning is that 134 websites, so about 40% of the remaining websites which have a mobile exit button, modified this button when it was present on mobile than compared to what it looked like on desktop. This means that although it might have a good implementation on desktop, it is harder to access for mobile users. This quite commonly means they shoved it inside of a side menu, or they moved its location on screen. They made it so you have to scroll to be able to find it. It was quite a lot harder to access, and we had worse scores for usability in these cases. So amongst these recommendations and common errors, we've provided useful recommendations for what developers of support service websites need to do to implement more effective exit buttons on their sites. We hope this has been useful, and if you're interested in contacting us, our emails are on the screen, and you feel free to read our paper for more details on what exactly we did in this study. Thank you very much.